On the phone, we have, I'm going to say it, the greatest cornerback and safety in NFL history. When this guy laid a hit on you, you remembered it. Former San Francisco 49er. He played for a couple other teams, but he's a 49er through and through. Ronnie Lott. How you doing today, Mr. Lott?
I'm doing pretty good.
I see that you were born in New Mexico. You ended up going to USC. Was USC your only choice, or did you have a bunch of choices for colleges?
Yeah, I had a bunch of choices, and I was looking at a lot of schools, and when I was looking at schools all over California, and I was looking at schools throughout the Midwest, I was lucky enough where John Robinson decided to recruit me, and I thought it would be a great place for me to go. So I chose to move in the direction of a lot of great Southern California players, and decided to go to USC.
Was it a tough sell?
No, it wasn't a tough sell. And the reason it wasn't a tough sell, my high school coach, even though I wanted to go to UCLA, my high school coach said, look, if you really want to play football, and if that's what you want to do in your life, you should go to USC, and you're going to get a great education, and you're going to be able to not only be a Trojan there for 4 years, but you'll be part of the Trojan family for life. And I realized right after my coach said that in high school that it was the right thing for me to do.
Was there any consideration to let you play offense at USC, or was it basically you're going to be a defensive back / safety?
Well, it started off as a defensive back, and then there was a point when they lost Charlie White. They were looking for a tailback, and at the time they had Marcus Allen and myself and Dennis Smith and a host of other defensive players that they thought, you know what, we should try one of these guys and see if they can play. And I think they chose the right guy. Marcus Allen was pretty good.
Was he any good on defense?
He was great on defense. That's the problem. He was great at whatever he did.
You look at that roster, and I see names like Marcus Allen, Jeff Fisher, you, Bruce Matthews, Dennis Smith, Keith Van Horn, who played for the Bears, Joey Brown, or Hobie Brown. It's like you guys had more talent on the Trojans than some NFL teams have.
Yeah, we did. We had a lot of talent on that team, and we had an offensive line that was arguably better than a lot of pro lines, and phenomenal athletes and guys who love the game and love playing it, and guys who work very hard at it.
Was Notre Dame your biggest rival?
Yeah, Notre Dame was, and will always be for a lot of reasons. It's a great game, great athletes on both sides. They had a group of guys over the years, that I learned to love and hate, competing against them, competing against, the likes of Joe Montana and others. Makes your life really very difficult when you're competing against guys like that.
What was playing for John Robinson like?
John Robinson was a great coach, and I think was, to me, arguably the best coach I ever played for. Bill was an exceptional coach, but I just really enjoyed what I learned from Coach Robinson and all the things that he brought in terms of his enthusiasm and his passion for wanting to win.
What was the main difference between him and your coach with the 49ers, Bill Walsh?
I think the difference was you had one guy that talked about competing. You had another guy that talked about execution. I think Bill focused more on execution. He focused more on the way the game was played. John just said, look, you got to out-compete the guy. You got to find ways to impose your will. And I think that attribute was something that resonated with me, and I think that those were the differences that allowed me to be a great football player.
The transition from high school to college, how easy or difficult was that for you?
It is very difficult because there are things that you had to learn that you didn't learn in high school, and things that you have to get ready for in terms of the size and speed of college players.
That championship game, was it your biggest game in college, that 78 championship?
Yeah, I think a lot of games were big games. Playing against Notre Dame obviously was great. Playing against teams like Stanford, playing against Bill Walsh, playing against UCLA was great. Playing against Alabama and Bear Bryant and the teams there. So there were a lot of great games that we played at USC, and a lot of great teams that we played against it. But I would say that going on the road and winning on the road was some of the best parts about playing sports.
In practice, did you get to go up against Charles White?
Yeah, that was tough.
I would think so.
Yeah, it was very tough. Charlie was one of the great competitors, one of the most dominating backs in college football.
I see that one of the reasons the 49ers drafted you was because your teammate and also your conditioning coach, Jerry Attaway, convinced Bill Walsh that they should take you.
Well, I'll be the first one to tell you, it happens when you have somebody that trained you and worked with you and helped you, and Jerry was essential to helping me develop as a football player at USC, as well as helping me develop as a athlete with the San Francisco 49ers.
Going into the draft, were you confident where you would go and who would take you?
No, I wasn't confident and did not know.
Okay. So the 49ers draft you in the first round. They draft another defensive back, Eric Wright, in the second round. They draft another defensive back, Carlton Williamson, in the third round. Do you say to yourself, hey, they drafted me. What are they drafting all these other defensive backs for?
Yeah, I think they chose at that time that they felt like they needed to find ways to shore up their secondary and shore up their defense. And I know that the year before they had a lot of challenges with the secondary. They had a lot of injuries. So I think they wanted to go young, and thank God they went young, and we were all excited to play together and come together. And turned out that playing with those guys were the best part of my life, just because all of them were great guys and great people.
I remember your rookie season. It seemed like you could do no wrong. I mean, you had 7 interceptions, 3 of them returned for touchdowns. You got to play in the Super Bowl. You must have thought, this game is pretty easy.
Well, I will tell you this. I don't know if it was easy because every day George Seifert, our coach, was making sure that we were humble and making sure that we stayed on task. And I think the focus was that we had to continue to do the things that we were capable of doing. And I think George was the taskmaster and made sure that all we did was focus on the game of football.
How did the transition from college to pro differ from high school to college?
I would say that, there was some things that were challenging, but all in all, the thing that's, to me, that jumps out is people are just bigger and stronger and faster.
And in training camp, you found out that you were big enough, strong enough, and fast enough to compete at that level?
I think what happens is you find yourself realizing every day you got to get bigger, faster, and stronger, and every day you got a lot of work a lot of stuff you had to work on.
Even though you played the Bengals in that first Super Bowl, I think the real Super Bowl was that game against the Cowboys when Dwight Clark made that catch because, again, you defeated America's team.
Yeah, that was the moment, and it was a great moment.
When you were playing with the 49ers, you were in 4 Super Bowls. Was there one that stood out as your favorite?
Yeah, obviously when you think of all the Super Bowls and you think you think about all the things that went on, and you think about, the run in 89, and, coming back and beating Denver, and you think about, how that went, and you think about the Super Bowl in Cincinnati, playing Cincinnati, and the coming down to a very close game, and 84 playing, Marino, and that was a phenomenal game for us, and playing in front of our home crowd and playing in front of our fans, and then the first one. And the first one was one that I will tell you that when I think about that game and how it played out, it was unbelievable. And the reason I think it was unbelievable, we just had so many things that went well that day. It was a phenomenal day. And I think the first one's always the best one, because there's so many things that you learn to accomplish that day, and so many things that make you feel really good about it. And so I think that when you think about those moments, right, and you think about all the things that you're trying to accomplish, the first one is the hardest one. And the reason it's the hardest one, because nobody knows that you can get there. And clearly, we didn't know. We didn't walk into the season that year saying, boy, we're going to the Super Bowl. We walked in that year saying, man, let's just make sure we can play great football. And we ended up playing a lot of great football that year, and it became a phenomenal year.
That game in '84, that Super Bowl, I mean, which was like a home game because you were playing in San Francisco, and you played, like you mentioned, Marino. That game had to be fun for you guys, because never before had a team, in sense, had the team played in their home city.
That was a lot of fun. It was great because you had a chance to sit there in front of your friends. You had a chance to stay with your families and friends. You didn't have to go into a hotel that week. There were a lot of things that made that week very, very special. At the same time, it also was one of those weeks where you were nervous because nobody had ever done it before. So to be able to go out and do it, to be able to win convincingly the way we won. And then the other thing that people forget about, that team was very, very special because it didn't lose a lot of games. And we did find ourselves with a lot of great football players. Some football players on that team that were some of the best at their position. And what I love is that we didn't have Jerry Rice on that team. We had, some great football players, but we had some guys on that team that were the very, very best at their position. We had Big Hands Johnson. We had Louis Kelcher. Those guys were at the best. They were the best at their position at one time or another. And we had guys like that really supplemented and helped our team and complemented our team in a way that when we got down to the end, it was really our defensive line in that game that really put on a show and allowed us to win that football game. And, Fred Dean and the rest of that group, Michael Carter, it was just a wonderful execution of guys playing great football.
Where did the story start that you had your finger amputated during a game? Because it was after the season. Was it just folklore, or did you kind of play up to it?
No, I never played up to it because it didn't even happen that year. And it didn't happen at all during that year. The following year, it happened. We played in the 1985 year. Turns out that we played the Cowboys going into the last game of the season. And then after going into the last game of the season, it turns out that playing against the Cowboys, I ended up smashing my finger. I ended up deciding that I was going to play the following game, and it turned out that I wanted to play. The doctor said that, look, you can't. And I said, look, man, I got to play. Ended up playing against the Giants in a playoff game. We ended up losing back there in New York, and it was a tough loss. We went back there and gave our best effort, but Joe Morris and the Giants prevailed that day. But after that game was over with, everybody was saying, "I can't believe you played the game." And I was like, those are the things that we do in life. And then the doctor said to me after that game that you have to amputate the finger. So I ended up amputating the finger and then moving into the following year, realizing that I'm going to have to, continue my career playing with my finger cut off. But the story is a Paul Bunyan story. A lot of people have said a lot of different things about it, but it was not part of the 84-85 season.
Was it a tough transition to go from cornerback to safety?
For me, it wasn't a tough transition. I had to go back there in that year. I went back in the year of 85. The coaches felt that there were I guess it was about the fifth game of the season. They said, "Look, Ronnie, you gotta get out of the corner position. We want you off the corner position. We want you out of there. We'd like for you to go back and play at the safety position. We think that's better for you. We think that you'll have a better opportunity to have success there." So I went back to that position, made the most of it that year. That was the 1 year I didn't make the Pro Bowl and didn't make anything that year. And so that was a tough year for me because I lost out. And so I had to regroup, came back the following year, and subsequently ended up making the Pro Bowl and ended up having a really phenomenal year and played really well. But that 85 year was a very difficult year for me because there were a lot of things that didn't go well, the transition of corner, the transition of going to a new position.
How did it feel when you found out you were inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Well, I'll be the first one to tell you, anytime that you feel that you have a shot, that means that you've worked your tail off. That means that you've given a lot to the game, and that means that there were so many things that would have to fall in place because the only thing you know is what you did, but you don't know is how people judge it. And what you don't understand is what people are going to think about how your body of work and what it means to play in the league. So I learned that there were a lot of things that I needed to work on, a lot of things that I needed to accomplish. And unfortunately for me, I had friends telling me that there was no way that you're going to make it your first year in. And unfortunately for me, there were some guys that said, "Hey, you might have a shot." So I ended up getting lucky, ended up going in the same year with Montana. I think the momentum of him and Dave Wilcox carried me in, and that's what got me into the Hall of Fame.
When are we going to get the owner of the 49ers and Eddie DiBartolo? I mean, that guy just seems like he deserves to be in. I haven't heard one negative thing from a former 49er about him.
No, and you won't get one from me either. And the reason why is that he's one of the best, if not the best owner ever. He set the tone for ownership and how it should be, how it should interact, how it should help players, how it should find ways to enhance their lives. He did an incredible job. He still does. He still continues to help people, continues to find ways to enhance their lives. He's just been a phenomenal leader, a phenomenal person. I'm always forever indebted to him because of all the things that he was able to accomplish. He's just one of those awesome owners.
What was the defining moment of your career, or your favorite moment of your career?
The favorite moment for me was in 1981. That's a defining moment to me, and the reason why we learned a lot about what we could do, and we learned a lot about how we could get better. And I think we applied that each and every year that I played the game. I think that everybody that I was associated with that year realized that there was so much more that we can do. And I think that just looking at that year and looking at the guys and looking at what they were able to accomplish, I realized that, man, those guys set a new tone for the game of football, and we were guys who constantly believed that we could always do better and that we could always accomplish a lot for the game of football, and more importantly for the San Francisco 49ers.